Should athletes lift weights? Well, this is the million dollar question because there is a huge divide between players, between their coaches, and even parents about the fact that should the athlete lift weights to become better, or is just playing the sport enough to become better year on year and unlock their full potential? Well, this is not a simple yes or no as an answer for this question because there are a lot of factors that come into play, which is why I've made this small video. I request you all to watch it right till the end, not skip any part, because if you watch this, you'll get an entire perspective on this topic and you won't have any doubts whatsoever. And at the end, I'm also coming up with a conclusion to this video so that you get something from this video and you take it with you. So let's start. So to understand if an athlete should lift weights or not, we all need to understand the force velocity curve. A lot of people call it the athletic profile, but I like to call the force velocity curve as an indicator of muscular capabilities. Our muscle does not just grow bigger or smaller in the gym, in the weight room, but it has several other qualities which can be enhanced. Here is the list. If you can see on the vertical axis, there's force. Force is anything that makes an object move, stop, or change direction. Velocity is nothing but the speed at which something travels in a given direction. The word direction has great importance in an athlete's life. So let's start with the first one, max strength. Here the force is very high and the velocity is low. This is where both of them meet. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say max strength? It's a deadlift, right? A powerlifter performing a very heavy deadlift. If you remember what exactly happens in that movement, it is performed relatively slow. When you perform at 90 or 100% of your ability, you move a little slower than all these movements down here. So that's max strength for you, less than 0.5 meters per second. Correct? So force high, velocity low. Moving to the next one, it's strength speed. If you see, the meters per second value over here is a little higher, 0.75 to 0.5. Strength speed, an example of an exercise would be a snatch. Puts a lot of load on the nervous system and involves a great deal of concentric action in the movement. Moving lower, it's power. It's 1 to 0.5 meters per second. Power could be something like a power clean. These all movements have some amount of crossovers with each other. It could also come under some amount of speed strength, but I'm just giving you an idea. Speed strength would be a lot of your plyometric movements. This is very common with athletes for many sports. This happens from 1.3 to 1 meters per second, So here the velocity of the movement is increasing. Plyo is done relatively faster than your deadlift, right? So it's over here. The curve, it meets over here. So the velocity is higher, but the force is relatively lower. You can't do a med ball slam with a 100 kg ball fast, correct? So I hope that makes sense. And the last one over here, greater than 1.3 meters per second, it could be a flat sprint, a linear sprint in one direction. So if you see at all these things, these are different capabilities of the muscle. Our muscle they are so beautifully designed that we can actually train for every aspect over here. And I'm not saying that every athlete should be great in all these departments. No. Your sport will decide what aspects you need to be great at. And that will take a huge chunk of your training. But say for example, a powerlifter, if he trains for plyo or starts sprinting their entire off season, does it make sense? No. Their program will be designed accordingly. But go and look on YouTube, look at the latest marathon runner, you will see him doing strength training, a minimal amount of strength training in his off season, because they are trying to build their athletic profile. Even though the guy does not need to do a 100 kg bench in his event, but he's trying to be an athlete. He's trying to be a little better in all these departments, which will end up him becoming better in his sport, in his marathon. So I hope this makes sense. This was part one. And lastly, I would just like to give an end conclusion to the first part, that when you enter the weight room, it's not just about building or growing muscle. Remember the force velocity curve next time. Let's move on to part two. So in part two, let's discuss the pros and cons of lifting weights. It has both advantages and disadvantages for athletes. Let's know what they are. First, the advantage that comes to my mind is blood flow, better bone health, and overall growth. It is a proven fact, and numerous research papers have led to the conclusion that if you do resistance training, it can help the overall growth of your body. You'll have better blood flow, your heart will literally pump more blood if you're say involved in a sport or if you perform some amount of resistance training. So overall better life quality. It also helps with strong bones. When you lift weights, it also helps build a resilient, strong bones for your body. Number 2, mobility. I put this on purpose over here. A lot of people think that if you lift weights, you're going to be stiff. No. A lot of movements that are performed within the weight room as a part of, say, conditioning or even resistance training, I have seen people become more mobile, more flexible in those particular movements, because many a times in our particular sport, we don't use our entire range of motion of that particular muscle, which happens over here in the weight room. Number 3, guard against injuries. A lot of soft tissue injuries, a lot of stoppages to your career can be avoided if your body is well maintained. So if you oil and if you service your body time and again by doing your share of exercises and stretching, you can avoid a lot of injuries in your life. The last one, super compensation. I want to give you an example here. If you were riding a car which has a top speed of 80 kilometers, and if you keep running at 80 kilometers day in and day out, what's going to happen? It is going to break down. When I say you're going to run at 80, I mean to say you're playing a game time and again. So what resistance training does is, you can make your 80 kilometers top speed to 120, which means you can use the 120 when you need to, but when you're cruising at 80, you'll be absolutely fine. That's what super compensation, that's what training is all about. It's about building qualities that you have in excess with regards to your sport. Let's talk about disadvantages. This is also interesting. Firstly, there is so much clutter on social media. Everyone wants to be Shoaib Akhtar. Everyone wants to be the strongest that they see on social media, but that's not really relevant for all. And because of social media, a lot of people, a lot of athletes also choose their programs basis factors that come to their mind first. So a lot of poor choices are made because of the clutter on social media. Second, lack of awareness. Most of the athletes that I come across, they follow the typical gym bro split. I'm doing chest today, I'm doing triceps today, I'm doing arms today, back today. You're not a bodybuilder. If you are training 1 or 2 muscles in a particular session for 1 hour, for 1.5 hours, you're doing what, 4, 5, 6 variations for a single muscle? Do you even need that much growth, or do you even need those many aesthetics in that particular muscle? Absolutely not. The lack of awareness is the reason why a lot of coaches and a lot of parents don't want their kids to go to the gym, because many times these kind of programs limit the amount of growth that one can have in their sport, and unnecessary training happens. Lastly, training for aesthetics. A lot of us want to look good for social media. A lot of us want to have a beach board. But I'll tell you what, a lot of sportsmen that you see on TV or anywhere else, they don't have the greatest bodies, but they have the greatest abilities, the qualities to execute their skill. So training for aesthetics is not going to lead you anywhere if you're an athlete. So these were the advantages and disadvantages of resistance training. Part 3, carryover of weight room qualities to the field. There's a lot of unrealistic expectations out there where people think I'm going to train 2 months for strength and I'm going to be a stronger batsman. I'm going to bowl at 150 Ks because I can squat 2.5x times my body weight. There is no instant results over here, because there's a lot happening inside your body when you're doing resistance training, when you're lifting weights. There's your brain, there's your nervous system which is at play. And to have those qualities being transferred to your sport requires your skill. How good you are at your skill, how good are your biomechanics, right? So, and it also involves a lot of understanding of your own body, and that happens with time. There are some people who are very quick learners, who observe quick changes in their body and are able to apply things, but some things always take time. So always have realistic expectations when it comes to lifting weights. Don't start lifting for the wrong reasons, and have realistic expectations. So the final conclusion to all this chatter, should we or should we not lift weights? The answer is you may, but do it under a professional. Work with a professional who can help you design your program, who can guide you on what to train and what's not really necessary in your program. And if you don't have the means to hire a professional, do your own research. Understand what are the movements that are required in your sport. If you are a wicketkeeper batsman and you're training like a fast bowler, there's a problem. So understand the needs of your sport, train accordingly, and if your sport requires you to lift weights, to have those certain abilities, go ahead and lift weights. So I hope this video made sense to you guys. I hope I was able to break it down to a fair extent. And if you like this video, drop a like and share this with your friends who are athletes.